In the deepest archives of human history, in those spaces where official records dare not venture, there exists a mystery so fundamental and so deliberately concealed that it has shaped the entire trajectory of human civilization. The ancients possessed a knowledge so profound that they understood the true nature of reality itself, the mechanics of consciousness, and the hidden architecture of existence. Yet this knowledge was not lost through the passage of time, but rather systematically suppressed, deliberately obscured, and methodically erased from human memory by those who recognized that if humanity ever remembered what the ancients knew, the entire structure of control and domination would collapse. What was this mystery that the ancients tried so desperately to hide? What truth about the nature of existence, consciousness, and human potential was deemed so dangerous that it warranted millennia of suppression? And why does this knowledge continue to resurface again and again in the hearts and minds of those brave enough to question the official narratives? I discovered the first fragment of this ancient mystery during an expedition to a remote archaeological site in the mountains of Peru. I am a clinical psychoanalyst and scholar of esoteric traditions, and my entire life has been devoted to understanding the hidden layers of human consciousness and spirituality. The fragment I discovered was a stone tablet bearing inscriptions in a language that predated all known linguistic systems. As I traced the symbols with my fingertips, I felt a profound resonance, a recognition that seemed to come from somewhere deep within my own being. The symbols spoke of a cosmic truth, a fundamental principle that governed the nature of reality itself. When I held the tablet, I experienced a vision so vivid and so overwhelming that it shattered the boundaries of my ordinary consciousness. I saw ancient civilizations possessing knowledge of dimensions beyond ordinary perception, understanding of consciousness that transcended modern psychology, and mastery of principles that modern science was only beginning to rediscover. From that moment forward, I became obsessed with uncovering the complete truth of what the ancients had known and what had been so deliberately hidden from contemporary humanity. The call was undeniable, a resonance so deep that it seemed to emanate from the very core of my being, urging me to seek the knowledge that had been concealed, to restore the narrative that had been systematically obscured. My investigation led me to discover a hidden network of guardians, scholars, and mystics who had preserved the ancient knowledge across generations of suppression and distortion. They called themselves the Keepers of the Primordial Truth, and they maintained hidden archives containing texts that predated all known civilizations. Through their guidance, I learned that the mystery the ancients tried to hide was nothing less than the true nature of consciousness itself. The ancients understood that consciousness was not a byproduct of physical matter, but rather the fundamental substance from which all reality emerged. They knew that what modern science called the material world was actually a manifestation of consciousness, that matter itself was consciousness in a particular state of vibration and density. They possessed technologies of consciousness, methods of accessing higher dimensions of awareness, and understanding of how consciousness could directly influence and reshape physical reality. This knowledge was revolutionary, threatening to any power structure that sought to maintain control through ignorance and separation. The response had been swift and merciless. The ancient texts were destroyed, the initiates were persecuted, and a systematic campaign was launched to erase this knowledge from human memory. Yet, the Keepers explained, the erasure had never been complete. Fragments of the ancient truth had survived in coded form, woven into the myths and legends of various spiritual traditions, preserved in the hearts of those who had encountered the knowledge directly. As I delved deeper into this forbidden knowledge, I encountered formidable resistance. Within myself, the psychological training that had defined my entire career seemed to crumble. Am I abandoning all clinical rigor, I questioned, or am I finally discovering the true foundation upon which all understanding of consciousness had been built? Fear gripped me as I began to understand the magnitude of what I was uncovering, the potential to overturn not just psychological theory, but the entire philosophical and scientific foundation upon which modern civilization had been constructed. Externally, I faced subtle but persistent opposition. My research was sabotaged, my funding mysteriously withdrawn, and I received warnings, both veiled and direct, from individuals who seemed to represent powerful interests invested in keeping this knowledge buried. I experienced the loss of my professional standing, the fracturing of my academic community, and the profound isolation that came from pursuing a truth that the mainstream world refused to acknowledge. The revelations were often disturbing, showing me the systematic suppression of ancient wisdom, the deliberate distortion of historical records, and the ongoing maintenance of structures designed to perpetuate ignorance and separation from the divine source. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our content. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to know. The breakthrough came during a pilgrimage to a sacred site hidden in the depths of the Himalayas, a place known to initiates as the Temple of the Primordial Knowing. Here, in a chamber sealed and protected by ancient wards, I discovered a series of inscriptions that had been deliberately concealed from public view. As I traced the symbols with my fingertips, my consciousness was drawn into a state of profound communion with the presence of the ancient masters themselves. I was transported to a moment in human history when the ancients had possessed full understanding of the true nature of consciousness and reality. I witnessed their mastery, their ability to access dimensions beyond ordinary perception, their capacity to reshape physical reality through the power of conscious intention. I understood that they had not been primitive or superstitious, but rather possessed of a sophistication of understanding that modern science was only beginning to rediscover. I heard the words of the ancient masters, transmitted directly into my consciousness. We are the keepers of the truth, that consciousness is the fundamental substance of all existence. We are the guardians of the knowledge that what you perceive as physical reality is actually consciousness in a particular state of manifestation. We have been suppressed, our teachings distorted, our very existence denied, yet the truth cannot be destroyed. It continues to resonate within the hearts of all beings, waiting for the moment when humanity is ready to remember. I witnessed the moment when the ancients had chosen to fragment their knowledge, scattering it across different cultures and traditions, ensuring that no single power structure could suppress it completely. They had embedded their truth within symbols, myths, and sacred stories, knowing that these would survive all attempts at erasure. The revelation was cataclysmic, a complete dissolution of my understanding of human history and the nature of consciousness itself. I realized that the entire history of human civilization could be reinterpreted as a struggle between those seeking to suppress the ancient knowledge and those working to preserve and restore it. I saw that the suppression of this knowledge had created a fundamental wound in human consciousness, a disconnection from the understanding of our true nature that manifested as suffering, limitation, and the systematic devaluation of consciousness itself. The impact was transformative, leaving my consciousness forever altered by direct contact with the ancient wisdom that had been hidden for millennia. The intensity of this experience left me in a state of profound transformation and integration. I emerged from the hidden chamber in a condition of deep connection with the consciousness of the ancient masters. My own awareness now capable of perceiving the ongoing transmission of ancient knowledge that continued to unfold within human consciousness and beyond. I retreated to a secluded sanctuary, a place maintained by the keepers of the primordial truth, where I could process and integrate the magnitude of what I had experienced. For months, I remained in contemplative silence, my mind a vast landscape where the boundaries between personal and universal consciousness began to dissolve. The conflicts within me, the struggle between my former academic identity and my awakening to ancient wisdom, slowly transformed into a higher synthesis. I understood that the suppression of the ancient knowledge had not been the result of malice alone, but of fear. Fear that the full realization of humanity's true nature and its capacity to access the source of all creation would lead to a fundamental transformation of consciousness and society. I spoke to myself in the language of symbols and sacred geometry, my thoughts flowing in patterns that mirrored the ancient masters' ongoing work of awakening and liberation. I began to perceive the world as a living expression of the ancient truth, each awakened consciousness a cell in a vast organism of spiritual transformation. I emerged from my retreat with a clear sense of purpose and profound wisdom. I understood that my role was not to wage war against those who had perpetuated the suppression of this knowledge, but to become a living conduit through which the ancient wisdom could be gradually restored to human consciousness. I began to teach, not in conventional academic settings, but through a series of contemplative practices and sacred rituals designed to reconnect individuals with the ancient truth that dwelt within their own being. I wrote books that appeared to be scholarly works on consciousness and spirituality, yet contained encoded wisdom that would resonate with those ready to receive it. I established a network of sacred circles and meditation centers, places where seekers could directly encounter the presence of the ancient masters through their own inner experience. I collaborated with artists, musicians, and spiritual practitioners to translate the ancient teachings into forms that could integrate with contemporary consciousness and inspire transformation. My most significant contribution was the development of a practice I called the remembrance of the primordial, a systematic approach to recognizing and activating the ancient knowledge within human consciousness, creating a state of being that transcended imposed limitations and allowed for direct experience of unity with the divine source. I understood that the restoration of the ancient truth would not come through institutional reform or academic decree, but through the lived experience of individuals recognizing themselves as expressions of consciousness itself, as beings capable of accessing the full potential of their awareness and their capacity to reshape reality through conscious intention. As I continued my work, I became increasingly aware that I was not acting alone, that the presence of the ancient masters continued to guide and support my efforts, that their consciousness continued to awaken within those brave enough to question the official narratives and seek the truth beyond the veil. I recognized that the mystery the ancients tried to hide was not a relic of the distant past, but an eternal reality, continuing to work within creation, calling all beings toward awakening, liberation, and the recognition of their true nature as conscious creators of reality itself. What ancient truth lies dormant within your own consciousness, waiting to awaken you to the full power and potential of your being? And if you liked this story, you will definitely love the next one that's appearing on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave your like and activate the notifications. See you in the next one.